Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Hi there, and welcome to the show. If this is your first time here, I'm glad you're joining me for the very first time, and thanks for checking out the show. And if you're returning, welcome back. It's always great to have you here. Now, are you a part of the Live Full, Work Fun community yet? Well, if not, be sure to hop over to Facebook and join the Live Full, Work Fun group. It took me a long time, perhaps maybe longer than it should have, but it took me a long time to distill into 4 little words the philosophy I like to live by. It's more than the entrepreneurial experience. It's more than working from anywhere. It's live full, work fun. Those simple 4 words have helped guide me and guide my decisions to a path that, earlier in my life, I never dreamed would even be possible. My hope for you by listening would be having those 4 short and simple words help guide your decisions to explore and experience life in a way you might never have thought possible. That's why I'm really excited about today's guest, Dan Miller. Dan is president of 48 Days LLC, specializing in creative thinking for increased personal and business success. He believes that meaningful work blends our natural skills and abilities, our unique personality traits, and our dreams and passions. Dan is active in helping individuals redirect careers, evaluate new income sources, and achieve balanced living. Dan is the author of the New York Times bestselling 48 Days to the Work and Life You Love. No more dreaded Mondays, and wisdom meets passion. He has been a guest on CBS The Early Show, MSNBC's Hardball with Chris Matthews, Moody Midday Connection, and The Dave Ramsey Show. Dan has spoken at the White House Christian Fellowship and is in high demand at national conferences speaking on aging and challenges in the workplace, as well as at universities and churches. Over 130,000 people have subscribed to his weekly newsletter. His 48 Days podcast consistently ranks in the top 3 under careers on iTunes, and the 48dayseagles.com business community is viewed as an example around the world for those seeking to find or create work they love. What does it mean to be fully alive in your work? Well, many of us are not doing what God put us here to do. Dan looks at the changing work models and outlines a plan for integrating your dreams and your passions into your daily activities. If you've ever buried your dreams in an attempt to be practical or realistic, well, Dan will show you how embracing those very dreams is the most practical way to enjoy life and achieve the success you're looking for. It is such an honor to have you here on the show today. I have been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time.
Well, thank you. I never get tired of talking about the opportunities we have for fulfilling work today.
I've been a big fan of yours, Dan, for many years. I've followed you and your podcast. I have your book, 48 Days to the Work You Love, and I actually discovered it a few years after I started my business. You've really been an inspiration and a help to me for many years, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, I'm honored by your comments.
You have recently been on Visible TV. I had learned some great things from your episodes on Visible TV. And one thing that struck me was that you've been an entrepreneur all your life.
I have. I have never had the experience of getting a paycheck on Friday or having benefits or 401k or retirement program. I missed all of that somehow.
Well, I find that so fascinating because that's not what my path was. I had a 20-year career having a paycheck every 2 weeks, and then I wanted to be an entrepreneur. There's like a little bit different mindset, isn't there?
There really is. It requires some different characteristics to be a successful entrepreneur as compared to being an employee. Nothing wrong about either one. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just different. When you're an entrepreneur, you need to be disciplined. You need to recognize that you're responsible for whatever happens. There's no pointing fingers, blaming. It's you at the end of the day. So that has its downsides in that it is you. There's not a lot of other people to depend on. But the upside is it is you. That's the other side, because then there's also no ceiling. And I'm one who would always choose an opportunity with no guarantee, but no ceiling, as opposed to a lot of people do. They just choose, they're more comfortable having the anticipated security, although that's often an illusion, of a paycheck every Friday. And they prefer that model over the uncertainty of being an entrepreneur. I'll take the roller coaster, the uncertainty, all of that, because I've discovered that beautiful thing that there's no ceiling to what can be accomplished as well.
I've been in business now for 10 years. This is my 10-year anniversary. And before that, I had no idea what opportunities there were. And I'm fascinated about how many different ways people earn an income. Do you have any examples of some interesting ways? Because you work with entrepreneurs all the time and you have a lot of ideas that you pick out opportunities. You see things that not everybody does.
I think it is that there's a neurological phenomenon called reticular activator. And it works like this, Gayla. If I buy my wife a red Volvo sedan this afternoon, tomorrow we're going to be driving around where we live here and see 5 red Volvo sedans. And I'm thinking, did everybody go yesterday and buy a red Volvo? No, they were there all the time. It just wasn't on my radar. There are a lot of things we don't notice. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have your antenna up for ideas. So I see ideas everywhere. I just got off a phone call with a friend of mine. We're exploring a new idea, and when my head's about to explode because it's like right under our nose, but we never framed it as being an opportunity like that before. When I was a little kid, when I was 6 years old, I saw an ad in the back of one of these magazines that you used to be able to pick up at the grocery store about opportunities. And so I sent in to sell Christmas cards. Now we were on a farm. I mean, our nearest neighbors are like a mile away. So it wasn't like just in the suburbs, every door's 30 feet away. No, I had to pedal my little bike a long way, but I sold Christmas cards door to door in Ohio winter and had the thrill of having people give me money in advance. Then I ordered the cards. And then I noticed neighbors that had dirty cars. And so I put together a little business washing their cars. And then I saw that there was leftover sweet corn in our garden after my mom was finished canning and freezing. And I thought, wow, we're going to feed that to the cows. I know people would love that corn as I do. So I'd get up real early in the morning and pick that corn, put it in the little trailer that we had behind our one little farm tractor, and drive the 2 miles up to a paved road and put up a little sign, 30 cents a dozen. But I just have always seen opportunities like that, no matter where I am or what stage of life I'm in. And a few years ago, I'd always been involved in masterminds, followed people like Benjamin Franklin, who had the Hunter Group, and others who put people of like mind and business people together. And Dave Ramsey and I had a group together for 14 years. And so I decided, I want to see if I can do this more as a part of my business. And so I put together a group of people where they pay to come together. And it's like, wow, are you kidding me? I mean, all I do is provide a space and kind of an environment for people to come together and share ideas. And they pay me very well for that opportunity. It was an experiment. And then I had a group where it was not just men like I had always had previously, but we had women. And rather than being limited to 12 people, I opened it to 30. And so, but everything I do is an experiment. A couple of years ago, we started our online community. where I know those are popular, but I want to structure mine a little differently to have people who have ideas, who are willing to share ideas and resources, again, to pay a monthly fee. And that has just exploded. And it's just a wonderful experiment to do these things as trials. And when you're an entrepreneur, you don't have to have all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. It's not like you have one thing that you're doing. You can have multiple things going. So if one is wildly successful, fantastic. If one doesn't do so well, it doesn't sink the whole ship. I like that as well, not having boundaries around what we can do. And so I just keep experimenting with ideas.
Do you think over the past few years, in particular, maybe the past 3 years, has the mindset changed a little bit on how we approach employment?
Very much so. I don't think we will ever go back to what was considered normal 3 years ago, where people, as you kind of alluded to earlier, you go to college, you get a degree, you go to work for the company, you show up every morning at 8 o'clock, get a paycheck on Friday, have 2 weeks vacation and a 401k contribution. That model is pretty broken because the pandemic allowed companies to realize people can be productive even if they aren't sitting there in their office. And it also had those employees wake up to the fact that, wow, I can do work from anywhere. And that, so we've seen this great resignation, or the great reshuffling, at least, that's going on, where we've now had 9 months in succession with over 4 million people quitting their jobs because people are saying, wow, my eyes have been opened to the possibilities. I can be anywhere I want to. I can live anywhere I want to. And the ripple effect is shown in what's happened in housing, because people realize they don't have to live in Manhattan. They can work for a company there or work for that company 1 day a week, and they can live 100 miles from there or 1,000 miles from there. So people are realizing they're more in control of their daily work. Even if they aren't true entrepreneurs, they have more flexibility than they ever dreamed was possible. I think that's a positive thing for everybody involved. There's no one model that's right for everybody. Not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody is. I'm not cut out to be an employee. I would drive people crazy if I tried to force myself into that model. Again, not wrong. It's just we have to recognize those things that are unique about ourselves. And there are people who really missed in the pandemic the social connection with other people. I have a friend who has a very large company. And I said, well, did you discover that you don't need all those fancy buildings that you have on your campus, that people can work from anywhere? He says, yeah. He says, we did a really good job of maintaining everything. We never missed any goals at all. What we missed was the creativity that comes from people hanging around a water fountain and talking, socializing together. He said it stagnated our growth into new opportunities because we didn't have that synergistic creativity going on. I thought, well, that's a great observation for some. I mean, and that's, again, a positive thing, in that we can design any kind of business we want to and know that there are going to be people who fit into those well.
Being an entrepreneur is hard. Not that being an employee is not hard either, but it's just different. I'm sure with all of your experience, you've had some highs and you've had some lows, and you still keep going. For those of us that are maybe a little apprehensive at the idea of, I've never been an entrepreneur before, because what if I fail? Would you like to share some of the maybe the biggest high that you've had so far being an entrepreneur?
You know, part of it, I have to kind of think to put myself into your question, because I don't consider anything else. I have never considered the possibility of going to work for somebody else, because, and I certainly don't want to paint the picture that I'm hard to get along with. I hope that I am not. I benefit greatly. When I say entrepreneur, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination implying that I do everything on my own. I am very dependent on the efforts of other people whose skills complement mine. So I have a team to accomplish the things that I continue to do. And I work with other people all the time. So it's kind of almost a misnomer, perhaps, to think that an entrepreneur is just a solopreneur, They're just totally on their own. No, that's not true at all. I mean, I identify things that need to be done in a business. And in my business, there's probably 20, 25 things that need to be done. I probably do 2 or 3 of those pretty well. So I want the efforts of other people around me, but I love the idea that we don't have a bureaucratic system in my company where we have to have meetings twice a week for 6 months to make a decision. We can make a decision today about something we discovered. So we're very, very nimble in that regard and able to switch very, very instantly if something's not working well, to unplug that. But having total freedom to then experiment with new things. What would this look like? Gee, that didn't work. So what does this make possible? But a lot of it is mindset. I mean, I tell people that to be super successful, you need to have the right mindset, the right idea, and the right network. So those are things I take very, very seriously. I work consciously on my mindset, reading things that inspire me, that help me stretch my positive thinking muscles, so to speak. Not so that I just have an artificial, cheap kind of psychological, positive mental attitude, but so that I really expect good in other people, that I expect opportunities that will fit me and allow me to prosper in ways that I've never done before. That's very, very intentional. So I have to be working on myself, not just watching the financials, but in terms of my anticipation, my expectation, working on mindset, working on personal development. I go to conferences, seminars, and courses that help me grow in areas that I think will benefit me ultimately in business.
I'm sure that you've had setbacks. We all have setbacks. How do you get through a setback?
By the positive anticipation that there's something good on the other side of it. I mean, our mutual friend, Michael Hyatt, and I learned a phrase from his wife, Gail, years ago. When an obstacle comes up like that looks like it's something that's impossible, the question to ask is, what does this make possible? And when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden we were not able to have live events, I was used to having live events. They were a very profitable part of our business. And all of a sudden we couldn't do those anymore. That's when I moved into the online community space. And I found that people were really eager for connection, even if it was virtual, not being in the same room together. So every time there's an obstacle, I'm looking at, okay, what's next? I mean, I had just a very recent experience where that began almost 5 years ago. 5 years ago, on May 1st, there was an article in the Nashville Tennessean about me, a picture on the front page of the Sunday edition that showed me in front of the place we had there in Franklin that we called the Sanctuary. It was a converted barn on our property. That's where we had these live events that were inspiring everybody. And somebody from Williamson County saw that article and said, you aren't zoned to have those kind of events on your property. They came on and said, you can't do this. And the codes director came out. His suggestion was that we would bulldoze the building. That was it. That was the only solution he suggested. I said, well, that's not going to happen. So I'm going to see what I can do to rectify this, get the necessary permits in place. Now, I had no idea it was going to be the bureaucratic nightmare that it was, but I started down that process, working with contractors, engineers, and attorneys to correct the things that they said I needed to correct for that, all along with the county assuring me that I'd never be able to get it all done. But I patiently worked through that. It took 4 years, 9 months, and 3 days. I wrote checks for $158,000 for the things that needed to be done. Now, in that period of time, I had no assurance that it was going to end up positively, but I had to believe that it would. I really did believe that it would. I believed that ultimately what I was doing with good intentions would come to a positive conclusion. It finally did. Just in January, on a Monday morning, the county attorney and the county judge signed off on everything that we had done, and it met total approval. 8 days later, we sold that property. Now, that 4 years, 9 months, and 3 days was horrendous. It was emotionally and financially draining and just frustrating beyond comprehension. You're dealing with bureaucracy where things just don't seem to move. They are not entrepreneurs. They're just pencil pushers and like to find ways to stop you rather than assist you. That having been said, that period of time, that delay that was so frustrating, in that period of time, my property value increased easily by $500,000. So it was frustrating, but ultimately I got to that. So I've had enough of those experiences where I have the confidence that even if this looks like an obstacle, I'll bet there's a way to get through this where there's something good on the other side. And in working with people who have jobs, I mean, I encounter every day, somebody contacts us, I just lost my job. And the knee-jerk reaction is, I'm going to have to turn back in the fine car that we have. We're going to have to pull the kids out of private school. We're not going to be able to go on vacation this year. They always think less whenever there's an obstacle. We're going to have less. And yet 18 months later, a lot of those people say, that's the best thing that ever happened to me, because it opened my eyes to things that I wasn't seeing that were right under my nose. And I'm in a way better position now in terms of what I'm doing, how I'm rewarded financially for this, the peace in our home. I mean, all those things. So my history helps me see beyond those obstacles in believing there's something on the other side. And I have lots of stories like that where it ultimately ended up pretty good.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that on your podcast quite some time ago, that when it was, I think when it was beginning, that you shared. You have your book, 48 Days to the Work You Love. It's a brand that you've been doing for quite some time, and you've had revisions. My revised edition happens to be in 2010. Have you revised it since?
Yes. So that came out 48 Days to the Work You Love in 2000. I've updated it every 5 years. So there was a 2005 edition, 2010, which apparently you have, 2015, and a 2020 is the newest one. And I'm already working on what will be in the 2025 edition. I'm already working with a publisher. I have lots of notes. So there'll be a 2025 version.
What got you started in this niche, the 48 days niche?
Yeah, that's interesting. As an entrepreneur, it actually snuck up on me in a way that I wasn't anticipating. Being an entrepreneur, I mean, I always have plenty of opportunities. So I was doing fine. You know, I'm a sales guy, can always land on my feet. But 20 years ago, well, now more than that, when that book came out, I was asked to teach a Sunday school class at our church there in Nashville, Tennessee. And I said, okay, on career life transitions is what we called it. Just these inevitable changes that people go through. I have my master's degree in clinical psychology, and I did my doctoral work at Oxford. So I have some experience in helping people with that. Although I never tied my education to a career. My education was simply for personal growth and development. I did at various stages of my life. But anyway, with that background, church asked me to do that. I said, sure. And what I anticipated coming to that class would be the 18-year-old trying to decide what to major in college, or the 23-year-old who was out of college and kind of disillusioned at what happened, in that he wasn't in a $100,000 a year job with a Mercedes and a driveway and a white picket fence. But what I didn't anticipate were the dentists, the doctors, the engineers, the accountants, the attorneys, the pastors who were showing up in that class. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Like, well, we're doing okay. Everybody would see us as very successful. I don't think this is it. I think there's something more. It was that sweet spot that opened the door for what I do today, helping people who, even though they had proven the ability to do well and to succeed in a given career, they're looking for something deeper, really defining, how has God uniquely gifted me? How can I take that and turn it into something that's meaningful, purposeful, and profitable on Monday morning? That's where I've been parked. That's where the 48 Days material originated. And it was a surprise to me because I was just teaching Sunday school class, just doing community service in essence, or ministry. And yet people started asking for material. I didn't have anything. And they kept asking me. And just out of duress, I finally put together a little 3-ring binder with 2 cassettes in it originally back in the late 90s. And with that, Then I went to a conference with Mark Victor Hansen, Megabook University, on how to promote your book. I thought I can probably learn a few things from this guy. I came back to Nashville from Los Angeles at conference, and in the next 30 months, I sold over $2 million worth of my 3-ring binder. Then I had publishers knocking on my door. So I really backed into this whole thing of being an author. And I was at that point in my mid-40s, so I wasn't looking to change. I was perfectly content with what I was doing. But it kind of showed up unexpectedly, and doors opened right under my nose. And ultimately, instead of just serving, doing it for free, I would gently turn those things into revenue-producing resources, and I've never looked back.
That is awesome. What popped into my mind when you were talking about those binders, I listened to your and your wife's podcast episode for the Valentine's Day episode. And I think that you alluded to, it was a family affair, to making up those binders and doing things. And that resonated with me because always helped my mom do things for her work and stuff like that as a kid. And that was very relatable. Is fun. That was a great episode. By the way, I had to have my husband listen to it. I said, see how they interact. This is so great. This is how we interact. This is awesome. So it's great.
Including those children, 3 children that we had, where they were helping to stuff the contents in those 3-ring binders and to put in the cover, back, and spine. And then we started including, because it's 48 days to the work you love, we started including 48 peppermint patties, those little dissolvable red and white things that melt in your mouth that are so energizing and all. We started including those, and the family was all involved in that. Well, now those little kids have grown up, and one of those little kids who was always immersed in this positive thinking stuff is now the host of the Zig Ziglar show. He's at 42 million downloads for his podcast. My next son is a brand strategist, always an entrepreneur, and none of my kids are employed anywhere either. But my second son is a brand strategist in the space community. So he's consultant for 6 different space agencies and just immersed in that and doing just marvelous things. And my daughter does work with me. She has her own company, but I'm her primary client. So she works with me, but working with me allows her and her family to be full-time travelers. So they've been on the road for over 5 years, where they just can be anywhere they want. And she's connected via technology. But yeah, those little kids absorbed a lot of the lessons they were exposed to in that process when they were small. And now they're all living it out on their own and passing on those principles to their kids.
One of the things that I remember listening was that you had attitude adjustment sessions with your children, so they'd listen to Zig Ziglar. And I was like, man, I wish I would have thought of that when I was raising my daughter. I love that. And now here, your son is in the Zig Ziglar world. Isn't that funny?
That's right. Sharing the message that he, as a little kid, kind of resented having to listen to, but it went deep, apparently, found root, and now he's sharing it as well.
You have the Eagles program, and I think you alluded to it just a little bit earlier in our conversation. Would you tell us a little bit about your Eagles program?
Sure, absolutely. I've always loved the idea of people getting together and sharing ideas. So I've modeled things after the early masterminds. You see people like C.S. Lewis, who in getting together with Tolkien, the works that came out of there because they encourage each other. I see the benefits of that. So I've always believed in that, and I've done it in a variety of ways. But then when we were not permitted to have the in-person events, I thought, surely there's a way we can come close to that kind of concept. And so we started the online community, and it's proved to be extremely popular because people don't have to leave home. They don't have to book airline flights and hotels and just carve out a week of their time or 3 days somewhere here and there. They can be involved day after day after day. So they see the interactions. They can hear stories of people who started. I talked to a gentleman this morning who started a business 2 years ago. It's extremely successful today and very, very doable in having created a model for others. So we allow people to come together like that. It's $48 a month. We just went with our brand as a monthly commitment to that. and people come, and there are people who are just starting out, but there are also people who are already very, very successful. And I love that in both of those have an exposure to the other. Somebody who's just starting have an exposure to somebody who's already been down a path. They can learn from them. And then somebody who's doing quite well, we find those people to be very, very willing to mentoring and helping those who are a few steps behind them. So that's what it is. I mean, we have a Monday mentor. Every Monday, we have somebody come in and share wisdom with the community. We study books together, but it's a lot of personal stories from people, both asking questions, but also offering resources to other people. So there's that synergistic lift, everybody. So instead of people, even if they're doing something on their own, they're not really on their own if they're part of a community like that. So they can benefit from the community without being an employee or having to give up their own freedom in any way.
I love that. And being a part of that community when you may not see opportunities for yourself, your friends in the community may be able to. And I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
There's a lot of that. You know, people share their ideas, and we can't act on every idea that we have. We actually have one location in our Eagles community for just sharing ideas. You know, here's an idea I had. I'm not going to do it, but somebody else may want to, and it's really popular where people share ideas and then extract from that as well.
Why Eagle? I see in my version of the book that you have a chapter that says I'm an eagle or an owl. What's the differentiator?
I've always been fascinated with the symbolism of the eagle, how they're focused, how they have vision that other birds don't, how when there's a storm, instead of cowering in a corner somewhere, they just fly higher. They fly so high that they're above the storm. And the same way with detractors, crows and others, they just fly so high that the others can't keep up with them. There's so many things about the eagle that I admire. So we use them a lot as symbolism, and we want these people to be able to fly high, to fly above the storms, to be able to go alone if they need to, without needing a lot of hand holding. So we just use that as a symbol. We give a lot of awards away that have to do with eagles, a lot of little modeled eagles. And yeah, so it's served us well. And having that kind of brand go with our 48 days, we're known as Eagles. Now, my mastermind is Eaglepreneurs. We have the Eagles Innovation Group, which is where people have done quite well. And we allow them to come in as investor members in the Eagles Innovation Group. And then we as a group look for businesses that we can invest in. That's a fairly new branch of what we're doing. It's been really exciting.
Wow, that sounds very innovative.
So look
that is really cool.
So we have people who have come up through the ranks. They're doing very well. They invest. And then we look for businesses that may be in the same community, but are at that point where they really need mentorship and development. And so the investor members not only have the potential for financial gain, which we want, but they also have the potential to serve on board of advisors or to serve as an interim CEO in a growing company or a CFO. So they get opportunity to be hands-on in these businesses that we've identified as well.
That is wonderful. Dan, I have really enjoyed our conversation. And I typically ask my guests this question to wrap us up, but has there ever been a favorite resource, whether it's a book or anything else, that has really made a significant difference for you, either personally or professionally?
Yes. That's easy to answer because there have been so many significant things. When I was about 13 years old as a farm kid, I somehow got a hold of the little audio recording, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. Now, when I got it, it was a 33 1/3 RPM. So it was a little vinyl, like a 45, but it had a small hole. So this goes way back. But on that recording, I heard this gravelly voiced old man say, "We become what we think about." And that became a really foundational principle for me then, as it remains today. We become what we think about. We know today, Tony Robbins says, what you focus on grows. And so what we think about, and I've always used that to my advantage to not be detracted by all the stories about how bad things are or watching the news about how volatile everything is. No, I control the input in my mind because I want to think about things that are going to take me forward, not pull me down into the negativity around me. So, and then I got a hold of books like Think and Grow Rich, foundational book, The Magic of Thinking Big, the old classic by David Schwartz, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, Acres of Diamonds, Russell Connell. Those books have had dramatic impact on me. And I go back and I grab those over and over and over again. Now, people are listening, but you can see here a copy of The Magic of Thinking Big. It's dog-eared, it's tagged up, the pages are yellow, but I keep it handy. I refer to it a lot. Zig Ziglar, See You at the Top. I had initially a lot of virtual mentors via their books or cassette programs back in the day. And then over time, because I really wanted to keep pursuing that path, I mean, I had the privilege of meeting a lot of those people and to have personal encounters with them. Those are the things that have pulled me forward and continue to do so. It doesn't have to be brand new. I mean, I'm a voracious reader. I love reading books and read everything new that people recommend that comes down the pike. But there's no lack of wealth of wisdom in the old classics as well. Success principles are not time sensitive. They don't have to have been discovered last week. 3 secrets never before revealed. Probably not. It's there somewhere, probably in the Bible. So I just keep looking for those sources of wisdom that help me have a positive, pure, clean, wholesome, optimistic outlook. And those have had big, big impact on me. We were raised very poor. We didn't have radio or TV, but I had access to books. Books have been the window to a bigger world for me since I was a little kid.
So how did you get a hold of that 33 album?
I wish
from the library
could recall the details of that. No, I owned it. I I would hide it under my bed because that way of thinking was really not
right
in my household. My dad was a very conservative pastor as well as being a farmer, a poor farmer. But the idea of thinking big or think and grow rich, are you kidding me? Being rich is you put you right in the devil's hands probably. So that was not welcome theology, but I was drawn to that. I don't know. I really can't put the pieces together how I actually got my hands on that.
But it made a significant difference early on. It set your trajectory for sure.
Yep.
That is awesome. I will have in the show notes links to your website, your podcast, and everything like that. But is there anything that the best way that people can get to know you better?
Well, 48 days, that is an easy way. Just anything 48 days will direct you into the resources that we have. And I want to remind people, just as a closing kind of thought, it's never too late to have a new beginning. I talk to people who are 27 years old who say, gee, I wish I wouldn't have gone to law school. And they give the impression, now I've just got to kind of coast into the grave. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You aren't old enough to ask the right questions yet. So it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 80. If you really want to, you can draw a line in the sand and start something significant and something meaningful, purposeful, and profitable.
I love that you say that. Thanks for being with me here, Dan.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Let's remember what Dan said. It's never too late to have a new beginning. It's never too late. Do you have a story in your life that you can share that resonates that very thought? It's never too late to have a new beginning. Let's continue the conversation. Hop over to Facebook and share in the Live Full, Work Fun community. Dan had dropped a lot of valuable mindset altering tips that we should all remember. What was your biggest takeaway? I'd love to hear from you. Drop that note in the Live Full, Work Fun Facebook group. And remember to scroll down into the show notes because I've included links to not only Dan's contact information, but also you'll find the links to all those classic books that are powerful in keeping you on a positive trajectory. Chances are you already have those books. I'm sure. But if not, maybe it's time. And if you already have those books, maybe it's time to read them again. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed the episode, and I'd love for you to do me this little bitty favor. Please share this episode with at least one person who you think might find it helpful and enjoyable. Just text them the link. It's that simple. Well, thanks again for listening, and until next time, have a fantastic week. Live full, work fun.